something is fundamentally broken in the world. You can feel it. When a world power makes a declaration, and instead of obedience, there's just silence, or worse, open mockery. This is the story of how power dies, not with a bang, but with a whisper that turns into a laugh.
500 years ago, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli wrote down a terrifying truth. He knew power isn't real. It's a story we all agree to believe in. And we are watching right now what happens when key players decide they don't believe the story anymore.
It started just days ago. Donald Trump makes a bold claim. A powerful global coalition is forming to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Sounds strong, right? A classic show of force. But then the world started to respond. And their words weren't just a disagreement. They were a coordinated takedown.
First up, Australia. A key, rock-solid American ally. Their response? Blunt, public, brutal. A government minister just comes out and says, no warships. That's it. No spin. The first crack in the illusion of power just appeared.
Okay, so one ally says no, but then Japan weighs in, and the response from Prime Minister Takahashi is somehow even colder. He says Japan is not even considering it. Think about that phrasing. It's not just a rejection, it's complete and utter dismissal. This is a public act of distancing.
And then comes the knockout blow. Germany's foreign minister, Gielan Wittful, doesn't just decline. He publicly attacks the very logic of the mission, calling the plan pointless. He's not just saying no, he's saying the idea is stupid. He's laughing.
So let's just be clear. Australia says no. Japan says no way. Germany says it's a pointless idea. This isn't random. This isn't a string of bad diplomatic calls. This is a pattern. It's a signal being sent. So what is the code? What's the real story here?
To understand what's happening, you have to look at an ancient playbook, a terrifyingly predictable pattern that Machiavelli laid out. This is the blueprint for how power actually dies.
Here's the secret. Power isn't about armies or economies. It's about belief. It's a collective illusion. It works only as long as everyone, allies and enemies, believes you're strong. The second that belief cracks, the whole thing shatters, often before a single shot is ever fired.
And this collapse, it follows 4 stages. It's a predictable downward spiral. Stage 1, contradiction. When a leader's words just don't match up with reality. Stage 2, strategic distancing. When your allies start to publicly back away. Stage 3, parallel alliances. That's when they start making plans for a future without you. And the final stage? Confrontation. And it almost always gets bloody.
So now, with this ancient code in our hands, let's go back and decode the chaos we're seeing. These aren't just news headlines anymore. They are terrifying data points in a much larger, much more dangerous story. And right there, you see it, we are deep into stage 2. Australia's no warships. Japan's not even considering it. Germany's pointless. This is not diplomacy. This is strategic distancing playing out in real time, on the global stage. These nations are publicly calculating a new world order.
But it's actually getting worse, because we're already seeing the first signs of the next stage. While some allies are just backing away, others are actively building something new. The pattern is accelerating. We are now entering stage 3.
Listen to these words from France's Emmanuel Macron. He's been talking with Iran's president about, and I quote, a new political and security framework. Let that sink in. That is the language of replacement. That is the quiet sound of a parallel alliance being built in the shadows. A world where America is no longer at the center.
And this is where it gets really terrifying for all of us. Because this isn't just about politics. When a global power structure weakens, it creates a vacuum. And you know what rushes in to fill a vacuum? Chaos. Absolute, unrestrained chaos.
Because your enemies are always watching. When they see your allies start to laugh, they get bold. The Houthis in Yemen have already shown they can disrupt the Red Sea. Now they see a world rerouting ships away from the Strait of Hormuz and sending them straight into a potential trap they've laid. And the economic consequences? They are catastrophic. A Goldman Sachs report says that just a 2-month closure of the Strait of Hormuz could vaporize 14% of the GDP for countries like Qatar and Kuwait. That's not a recession. That is an economic heart attack. That's how nations collapse.
And look at this. It's not one crisis. It's a wildfire jumping from place to place. The Strait of Hormuz contested. The Red Sea threatened. Dubai's airport literally on fire from drone attacks. Explosions lighting up the night sky over Manama, and Lebanon bracing for a full-scale invasion. The whole map is on fire.
And the scale we're talking about, it's almost unthinkable. The Israel Defense Forces are prepping to call up as many as 450,000 reservists. You don't call up that many people for a small border dispute. That is the number you call when you are preparing for a long, brutal regional war.
So forget about a regional conflict. What we are actually watching is the violent unraveling of an entire global order. This is the battle for what the next 100 years are going to look like.
And you always have to ask who benefits from this chaos. Vladimir Putin loves it. He gets a distracted West and higher oil prices. Xi Jinping gets a perfect distraction from his plans for Taiwan. Kim Jong-un gets to point and laugh at a weakened world. And all the non-state actors? For them, chaos is a ladder.
But the final battlefield might be the most important. It's narrative warfare. When Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, goes on American TV to say the war is unwinnable, he's not just stating an opinion. He is launching a weapon directly at the belief in American power. He's using Machiavelli's playbook.
So as I see it, we are staring at three possible futures. Path 1, fragile diplomacy somehow pulls us back from the brink. Path 2, a full-blown regional war that drags the whole world in, forcing everyone to choose sides. Or Path 3, the most terrifying, a global reset. The old order dies completely, and something new and unpredictable crawls from the wreckage.
Which brings us all the way back to the pattern: contradiction, distancing, parallel alliances, confrontation. Looking at the signals, at the chaos, it's no longer a question of if we're in this cycle. The only question that matters now is, which stage are we in right now? Because what comes next is almost never peaceful.